Oxytocin is a neurochemical that all of us have, a connection chemical. Oxytocin between a mom and a child is released when they're like physically close and emotionally close. You feel like connected in that way. For fathers, we feel more connection with our children when we're playing. Research shows that like 10 minutes of undivided attention builds lasting relationships with children, which is crazy. 10 minutes. Most of us spend hours, and then we still beat ourselves up, right?
Welcome back to the Bringing Up Business podcast, where we talk about business and parenting. You are in the right place if you are a parent and want to be a business owner, or you're already doing both, but you want to level up or at least find a little more balance, whatever that means. Today's episode is a very special treat because we are going to talk about something that deeply affects us in business, but seemingly has nothing to do with it. We are going to dive into the relationships that we have with our kids. If you have a preteen or a teenager, then you probably already understand how important this is. But if you have a younger kid, how our kids interact with us can leave lasting effects on us that bleed over into our work. Today's guest can probably also highlight at least 15 other reasons why this is important, because he specializes in helping teenagers and their parents. His name is Braxton Storm, a licensed clinical social worker. He is also owner of Calm the Storm LLC, a private practice in Henderson, Nevada. Braxton, I'm so glad you could join us today, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Kaila. I really appreciate you having me on. This is going to be great.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to. And honestly, selfishly, I've been wanting this episode to happen because I've got a little guy, as you know, he's almost 3 years old. And I don't know if you know this, but I have 3 goals for him. My first goal is to just keep him alive. It's a pretty low bar, but if I've kept him alive for the day, then I've done my job. My second goal is to be able to raise him into a capable adult, someone who can handle himself and be able to go after what he wants, right? Reasonably and respectfully, and also live in relationship with other people. That seems to be a really important part of business and our personal lives. So that's my second goal for him, is to raise him into a capable adult. And my third goal is to be able to feel connected and close with him when he's older, and vice versa. I want him to be able to come to me if he needs anything, or, I just want that relationship to be close. So yeah, I want this episode to happen.
We're here. Let's do it.
Yeah. So let's first dive into the common struggles that parents seem to face with their teenagers. What are issues that you have noticed?
I think that's a really good question. To answer that, I think we need to understand that the role of a parent in especially a teenager, but in a child's life over just generations has changed, right? Just purely based on technology and access. So teenagers, what I find is that they want autonomy, right? That's like number one for preteens and teenagers. They're starting to get into that adult mode a little bit. And what I find is that parents are very hesitant to allow that to happen, right? So we want a lot of control. And it's not control in terms of like we want to make our kids feel bad, but we're just really scared of decisions that they might make. And so we try to mitigate everything, right? Like if we can mitigate pain for our kids, then that helps us as parents to feel safer. But what kids really do need, teenagers in specific, is they need to be able to learn, right? They need to be able to use their autonomy in ways that are not so helpful and helpful to them so that they can experience life, right? Because that's the best preparation for adulthood. And so that's probably the number one challenge, is how do we balance autonomy with boundaries as parents, right? How do we maintain connection while also setting up boundaries for them? And the illustration I like to use is like, I say this to parents, if you were a bowling alley, you guys as parents would be the bumpers and your child would be the ball, right? In life, it's the lane. And the ball is going to go down regardless. And you as parents don't have to handle the ball, right? The bumpers aren't like on the ball all the time. But when the ball bumps against the bumper, right, that's the boundary of a parent, right? It's okay to have those, right? So, for example, you might say to a child, just the example that comes to mind is like, you can hang out with so and so at this, this day, but you don't have to dictate exactly what they do or where they're at or all the different things. But like you can just set up boundaries, right? For food, you could say, hey, like you can choose, one thing out of the five things that we have on the plate today or whatever, right? Like instead of controlling everything and making sure that really, because we want to feel better as parents, but it's not helpful.
Right. So what does that boundary setting look like in practice? How does that work? Do you just tell the kid what you want and then the kid's just gonna follow it and all is dandy? Or like how does that work?
Well, that's the balance, right? Is like kids want autonomy, so it's a child's job to push boundaries, and it's our job to uphold them, right? So that relationship, we call that misbehavior, but really that's a healthy relationship developmentally. If children are pushing boundaries and we're not upholding them, that's where we get into trouble.
That
Does
makes
that make sense?
sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That makes sense. So we might be misconstruing the boundary pushing, which is the child's job. That's what they're supposed to be doing, as misbehavior. What what can it look like to uphold a boundary in a way that works with the kid, right? Like do we need their buy-in or how does that work?
I think collaboration is always helpful, right? So I talk a lot about this on my social media platforms. When we collaborate with kids instead of dictating what they do, then it's much more helpful. So like you said, buy-in. When you're setting up boundaries, you're the gatekeeper of boundaries, but it doesn't mean that you can't collaborate with your kids in creating them, right? So you can say something like, hey, something that we value as parents or as a family is whatever, honesty, rest, whatever, right? What do you think would be an appropriate boundary in our family for you as a child as it relates to this topic, right? So, for example, we believe that we need to get adequate rest. You want to go to bed at 12 o'clock. We think you should go to bed at 9 o'clock. What do you think about like meeting in the middle somewhere, right? And that doesn't always mean that everything has to be a collaboration, right? Like we don't walk in the road, right? Like that's not a boundary or like something that's negotiable. We just don't do that. But most things can be negotiated, can be collaborated with.
Well, that's so interesting. It's so interesting to hear the word negotiation when it comes to boundary setting because I think of as a parent of a small one, I think of negotiation as this unfortunate thing that now I have to deal with as a parent. Like I just want my kid to put on his shoes and get out the door. I don't want to negotiate this whole business deal with my kid in order to get from A to Z. So there seems to be a bit of a reframe with negotiation as more of a collaboration, right? It's having our kids be a part of that safe boundary setting process. Am I understanding that correctly?
I think so, yeah. And it's always easier to be preventative instead of reactive. So meaning what that means is like with the shoe situation, I run into this all the time. We're running late, we're busy, right? We need to get out the door. I did very little to prepare my kids for the demand of the rush, right? But now I am like expecting them to just like fall in line and do all the things.
Right.
Sometimes that's needed, like we said, but really we got to own the fact that like we probably procrastinated getting ready, right? And so we can't expect like our little child's mind to adapt to an adult need, right? Like we need them to get ready, but they're not even there, right? Like, so we got to own that. We might be late, right? But it's not their fault because they didn't get on their shoes most of the time. It's usually like we probably didn't prepare them, right? We didn't talk to them about it. We didn't let them know what the schedule was. We didn't, whatever it is.
Right, right. There has to be some sort of a transition for our kid. Yeah, yeah. What I've been practicing, I mean, you tell me what you think about this. What I've been practicing with my toddler is, hey, in 5 minutes, we're going to start getting ready to go to grandma's house or whatever it
Super.
is.
I
Right.
love it.
Like it maybe I don't think he understands time and I don't know when he will start to understand the concept of time, but my saying that seems to kind of help. I mean, do you have any other tips for how to better transition our kids?
No, that's what's recommended. That's what I do, right? With the little
Okay.
kids that I have. My oldest is now is to the point. in particular, it was difficult with watching shows or movies. So whenever like we have a time limit on how much they can watch, and whenever it get to that time, at first we would just be like, okay, it's time to turn off the TV, and that was extremely difficult, right? Because it was like now, right? We have to do it now, and they weren't prepared for it. So what we started to do is like, hey, you have 10 minutes, you have 8 minutes, you have 5 minutes. Hey, it's 2 minutes, time to turn it off, and that just goes better, right? Because they understand. Maybe they don't have the concept of time, but they understand that it's running out.
Right, right. We're kind of walking them into the next step instead of expecting them to just jump into the next thing.
And regulate, right? Like to totally regulate with a jump, that's extremely difficult for us as adults. That's hard.
I was just thinking that, yeah, even as adults, it's so crazy because as parents, we can default into thinking that our kids who have lived a fraction of our lifespan can be at the same level as us, and yet even as adults, like we still struggle too.
We usually struggle with the same things. It's just the adult version.
Ooh, say that again. We usually struggle with the same things, but it's just the adult version.
Yeah, I truly
Yeah,
believe that. I mean, if you think about like with negotiations, if you have a boss that just bosses you around and tells you what to do, you're likely not going to stay, right? But
right.
if your child has a hard time with you bossing them around, that's misbehavior.
Ooh, ooh. We are just like, okay, now we're like cracking into these societal norms a bit, right? So, say, for example, we're at the grocery store and we see someone who's having a hard time with their kid, like their kid is having a moment, right? And, I've been that parent where my kid is having a moment in public and I'm so worried about other people judging me or looking down on me, looking down on my kid, saying, oh, he's a bad kid, quote unquote, bad kid. But in reality, these kids are just developing and being kids, having their
Yeah,
moments. Yeah.
yeah. And I mean, we have to realize like children, especially younger children, that like you had mentioned before, like their brain isn't even close to fully developing, right? But usually, like when there's an eruption, it's hard for parents, at least the parents that I have worked with, it's hard for them to keep their cool. And we say things like you're making me do this, or you're making me mad. It's an externalized reason why I'm doing this. It's not actually the case. Usually it's like you're triggered, right? And you're choosing, or you don't even have a choice. Sometimes you just haven't healed enough, and so now we're just reacting, right? But again, like we have to model what we want our kids to do, right? In the grocery store, if we lose it when they lose it, they're going to lose it, right?
Right. Right. So thinking if we're in that moment, say our kid is grinding our gears and we're about to explode, or maybe we have already exploded, like what is what is the most conducive way to handle that for the relationship? How do we deal?
So I think uh, I'll answer that by saying what's not helpful first. I think sometimes we want to extinguish our child's behavior first, right? So we're heightened, they're heightened, and we say things like calm down, go to your room, whatever. Again, something that's not modeled is very hard to sustain. So with your child, if you're in a heated argument or tantrum or something, you might say something like, "Mommy or Daddy is feeling mad. I need to take a break," right? Or Mommy and Daddy is having a hard time in this conversation. I need to cool myself down, right? And you can let them know what you're going to do, right? That's awesome. If you can verbalize, like, I'm going to go outside for a second. I'm going to go get a glass of water. I'm going to go, to the bathroom, whatever. Demonstrate for them and verbalize to them what you're going to do to calm down. Sometimes, like, timeouts are helpful in terms of like you individually take your timeout. So you might just say like, "Hey, I think we all need to take a break, right? We need a timeout for a second." Um, that can that can also help to like separate and then come back together. If you never want you're heated, nothing logical is gonna resonate there.
Yeah, yeah. My husband and I figured that out many years ago. Just doesn't work. Mhm. So it's about catching ourselves first and saying, "Oh, I'm starting to feel I feel this tightness in my chest. I feel this warmth in my head. I'm starting to lose it. And then
Yeah.
figuring out a
And
way to verbalize that to our kid and say, hey, look, I am starting to feel out of control. I'm starting to feel upset, whatever that is. I need a moment. I need to take a break. Yeah. Yeah. And are there different ways to say that to kids at different ages? I mean, how does that shift?
that's a great question. So, a couple thoughts on this one. The reason that I start with parents is because you need to model something. Like, if you're not able to do the thing you're asking your child to do, it's very rare that they're going to continue doing it. So I have a lot of parents who bring their kid in and say, "Hey, like I want you to work with Zoe, for example, and she has emotion regulation issues." Usually, the first thing I say if they call me is, "I'll see you and your spouse in the first session." And they're always like, "What?" Like Zoe's the issue, right? She's the one that has problems. And what I find is that the same problems that Zoe has, right, the same issues with emotion regulation are just really they're just translated through the parents, right? The parents have the same issue. And so if we work with parents first, then children, 90% of child behavior, misbehavior, changes and adapts when parents work on themselves, right? It's crazy. So if we're able to recognize what we're feeling as parents, like you said, like, oh, I'm feeling warm, or I can tell that I'm about to explode. If we can slow down enough and get to a space where we're recognizing that, that's golden, right? I mean, that's amazing. Because then you're in charge of the trajectory of this interaction, right? You can leave, you can take a break, and then you're modeling for them, right? And then when you come back, you can help them, right? You can say, "Hey, Zoe, I noticed that like your face was really red when we were talking, and your fists were clenched, and you were about to throw the toy, right? Like, what do you think you were feeling? Oh, you don't know? Okay, like let's talk about emotions, right? Emotion 101, like what are emotions? How do they feel? What do they look like? What are the names of emotions?" And then a redo might be followed up with like, if we were to redo what just happened, like, could you just tell me what you were feeling, and I can tell you what I was feeling, and maybe we could do something. Like maybe we could tell each other that we're going to take a break. Let's redo it.
Whoa. This is it's enlightening. It's equally enlightening and also just so foreign. This is a completely new idea, at least for me. I definitely did not learn this back in the 90s. I mean, there was just explosion happened, everybody's upset, and then that's it. You move on to the next
These guys
part of
would
life.
end up, right?
Yeah, yeah. Now, how does so if we if we don't catch it in the moment, right? Say we're upset, we're about to explode, but we just don't catch that nearing of the edge and we end up going over the edge with our kid. Then
Yeah.
what? Is it too late? Have we damaged our kid forever or what happens then?
I love that question. So here's the thing, right? Like we can talk about skills and strategies and like the ideal, but the truth is we're human and we're gonna make mistakes. I was just talking to a dad the other day that said like, you know what, I know the stuff, I know how to do it, and I still mess up, right? And that's the beauty of parenting is that it really like, yes, you're gonna mess up and your child actually needs to see you mess up. But what comes next is really crucial, and that's called repair, right? Dr. Becky Kennedy, in her book Good Insight, talks about this, and it's crucial. Like every relationship, like just this is just an example, but if you had a friendship or maybe a parental figure who did some really, terrible stuff, right? Like never repaired with you, just kind of hurt your feelings, really made you feel down. But years later, they came to you and they said, "You know what? For the last 40 years, I've thought about that interaction or those interactions with you, and I have put in some work, right? Like I went to therapy and I really have changed the way that I see life and myself. I've learned to regulate myself. And I just want you to know, like, that was not your fault, number one. Number two, this is what I'm going to do differently next time if you give me a chance. Number three, like, I'm just really sorry. Right? Who wouldn't be like, gosh, like, yeah, let's do this, right? Like we want that. We want connection. We want to feel seen. And so the beauty of parenting is that you can repair, right? No matter what. I mean, there's some extenuating circumstances that are harder to overcome. For most parents, the yelling or screaming or, big, loud emotions and stuff. Like all of that can be repaired through, right? It's vulnerable. It's difficult for parents to do that, but we can totally repair with our kids.
Ooh, it's the allowance to be human that makes me so uncomfortable, but it's also so comforting. So it's this really weird dichotomy of like, wait, I don't have to be a robot? That's kind of nice. But also I'm so used to being a robot. Like how do we, how do
It's
we
hard.
live in this new world? Yeah, yeah, it's definitely challenging. I can also see that translating very well into work too with our team. Say if we're running our business, we have a team working for us, and we come off a little harsh with a directive, or we respond in a funky way to someone else, right? They come to us and they do something and we get upset by it. Now we're all riled up. Well, we still have the chance to repair on the
Yeah,
back end. And I can imagine too, you're going to somebody, you're saying, I'm sorry. It's really hard for them to stay upset with you.
right. Especially if you've put in the work, right? Especially if you've like recognized what you did and made a plan to do something different, right? And being able to express that, like that's security, right? That's safety. And the key of repair isn't like we sometimes say to our kids, like, sorry means you never do it again. I don't know if that's true, right? You're going to make mistakes. I think sorry means that you make a plan and you actively try to achieve the plan imperfectly, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a key part of repairing and being sincere.
Yeah. Yeah. Making that plan. It sounds thoughtful, right? You've actually put thought into the future of that relationship. You're thinking, okay, this is how I can avoid hurting this person again, and this is what I'm going to verbalize to them. And what's nice about that too is by vocalizing your plan, you can maybe possibly invite collaboration too with the other person.
That's it, right? I mean, we're trying to model the behavior we want from our children. So if we're wanting them to apologize faster and recognize what they're doing and recognize, have empathy for the impact on others and all of those things, we better be doing that ourselves as parents.
Ooh, ooh, that makes sense. And now, a quick message from our sponsor. Have you ever been in the middle of a hike, trail run, bike ride, fishing trip, or other sport, but found yourself in pain due to blisters, sore joints, or cold toes and fingers? It's frustrating to have to head back inside when all you want to do is be outside. Drymile is built for those who don't want to let the weather or terrain slow them down. Drymile's high-performance socks and gloves are engineered for adventurers who demand comfort, durability, and protection in every step and stride. Whether you're traversing rain-soaked trails, tackling your next outdoor challenge, or find yourself in unpredictable conditions, Drymile keeps you dry and moving. With moisture-wicking technology, breathable materials, and a rugged design, their gear is built to endure the elements. Don't let discomfort hold you back. Visit drymile.com and get 10% off your order today with coupon code BUB. That's BUB. Get out, stay dry, and keep exploring. Drymile's got you covered. Thank you for staying with us, and back to the show. So, say we're at the playground with our kid and our kid does something really funky to somebody else. How do we walk our kid into repairing that and fixing what they've just done?
I have little kids and we've ran into this before. So generally, the ideal, right, might be that you take your child and just go sit down where you're sitting and walk through with them what they experienced just now, right? Like, my son, like, tell me what happened, right? Like, I saw something, that kid's crying, like, can you walk me through what happened? And then usually when they walk you through what happened, you can follow up with like, what do you think would make that better? Right? Again, teaching them problem solving skills, teaching them empathy, helping them to have that collaboration with you and autonomy, right? Okay, well, like if you think that going and apologizing and inviting them to play with you in a safe way is the best option, like, are you going to do it? Like, how could we do this? How can I support you? Right? If you want me to hold your hand as we walk over there, okay, let's do it.
Wow. What I'm hearing from you is more questioning and less telling.
Yeah.
So it's more, hey, how do we do this thing? What do you think about? Instead of just telling the kid, hey, go say you're sorry to the other kid.
Yeah, because you're not, when you say go do this, right? Obviously, again, we're imperfect. I'm not saying you should never say that. But when we do say those things, that's forceful, right? So when we force kids to do something, it's the same thing as if someone forced us to do something. Like we're not generally going to learn anything, right? We're not like, I try to teach parents and remind myself, like, through my parenting, what skills are being developed? Or am I just controlling behavior, right? Because controlling behavior doesn't generally work. But if I could teach them skills in a variety of settings, then that's going to last longer, right? Like that's becoming someone instead of just like being forced to do something.
Right, right. And I'm seeing a parallel between parenting and leadership at work. And with the parenting, we're here, you and I are talking about how to form these questions so that our kids can develop a skill set and eventually be more self-sufficient, right?
Right.
At work with our team, we can practice that in a similar way. Obviously, at work it's less behavioral. We're not focused on that as much. Hopefully not. but but we're more so saying, hey, I have this project. This is the end goal. How do you think we can get there? And by that, now we're inviting this synergy, this dance with us and our team member. And I can also see that giving them a sense of ownership and empowerment too.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
want to get their buy-in.
Right, right. There's that word, buy-in.
If you look at companies just globally, like the shift from like the normal 8 to 5, like sit in the office type of a thing, that's shifting overall, right? You see a lot more creativity, a lot more autonomy, a lot more buy-in. Uh, One example is like Google, right? I've never been on a Google campus before, but I've heard how cool it is, right? Like how relaxed the environment is and how creative it is. And some people might criticize that and say, well, like maybe they're not learning X, Y, or Z. But Google is a pretty successful company, and most people who work there love their job, right? And they're invested in it because they feel a part of it, not just like they're being told or forced to do something.
Right, right, right. It's like setting this blank canvas and allowing the artist, allowing the team member to work their magic. Yeah, very cool. So earlier we were talking about transitions and how that can affect our mood, our kids' mood, and how we go from A to Z. I have noticed personally when I transition from work mode to parent mode. I do this multiple times a day because I have a weird desk schedule. But when I transition from work mode to personal mode, I have a really hard time going into mom mode and saying, okay, I've got to stop thinking about all of the work stuff. Now it's time for my kid and to pay attention to him. So do you have any ideas, tips for how that transition could be a bit more smooth?
So that's a common thing for most people, most professionals. My office is 3 minutes from my house, so when I go home, it's like I got 3 minutes to transition into dad mode. But what I found, I was listening to a podcast the other day, and someone suggested that when we have a hard time transitioning, it's because we have open loop thought loops. Meaning, like if we haven't closed out the day, right, or at least answered the unknowns, then it's really hard to transition into something else. So what I've done is like made a plan, usually like midday, like kind of do checkpoints throughout the day of like, okay, like what am I trying to accomplish today? And then answer like the unknown. So like, okay, if I can't do this and I can't do that, like what's the plan for it, right? Well, I'll do it tomorrow. Okay. It's like everything has an answer. And then if it doesn't have an answer, like it must, like that's just something for later. And so when I transition into home, like I can be 100% there because everything at work had an answer. It
Ooh.
doesn't mean it's finished. Doesn't mean it's done, but it has an answer. Like there's some sort of plan there.
Oh, I love that. That reminds me of the zero inbox method. My VA taught me this, and she helped reorganize my entire email inbox earlier this year. So what you do is you create different folders. One is for delegating, one is for do it later, and then the rest are just like delete, junk, get rid of. They don't need to exist in your brain, right? So what we could be doing to transition from work mode to personal mode is create a zero inbox method. So just like how I go through all of my emails and I say, okay, can I answer this right now? Nope, I can't. I've got to do that later. Oh, can this be delegated? Oh, that's going to go in the delegation box. So that ultimately my inbox is at zero. And now I just have folders for that are delegated to and allocated to. With my tasks, I could be doing the same thing. So it's like, hey, this task doesn't need to be done during my personal time. In fact, I don't want it to be done during my personal time. So this is what's going to happen. I'm either going to get to it this afternoon or tomorrow or whenever. I'm going to delegate it, or maybe it's just not that important and doesn't need to be done at all. So it can go.
So I think that's a really key part, at least for me, that's been successful. But it's not always easy, right? Again, like we're not aiming for perfection. The transition generally is hard from work to home, but there are things that make it a little bit easier for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing your insight on that. So when we had last spoken, it was just you and I one-on-one offline. You had mentioned a Pew Research Center report in 2013 that states men spend 3 times more time caring for their children now compared to 1965. What is the highlight of this research report? What makes it so significant as it applies to our family life and our business life? What are we finding here?
I think a couple things. One, I think that men in general are starting to prioritize family, right? Which is awesome because the research also backs the need for a father figure in the home. And so I think that that's probably number one. Number two, I would say that fathers and children are starting to connect more, right? And we're, as a father is vulnerable, there's like nothing more powerful than seeing a father engage in a healthy way with their children, right? And from the child's perspective, it's the same. And so, uh, fathers in general have a harder time connecting and being vulnerable. But when you do, like that feeling of connection is really what, in my experience, every dad has ever wanted. And so they're starting to see the reward of that connection with their children. Two, I think from a business perspective, we're probably starting to recognize that when things are, we used to think like if things go well at home at work, then naturally like I'm helping my family, right? But I think it's reversed. Like when we're connected at home, the drive for success in other areas, I think is amplified. That's been my experience. It's just like you do way better at work, especially like, for entrepreneurs and things like the drive after feeling connected to what's most important, I think is important as well.
That is wild to think about because from my perspective as a female, it seems like for males, historically, it's go out and hunt, and that is the source of value for being a man, right? But now we're kind of flipping this on its head and saying, well, wait a second. If we are connected at home, we can actually go out and hunt more. That is so fascinating. I mean, what do you think about that?
I love it. I think that for me, speaking for just myself, uh, when things are going well at home, right? Like me and my spouse are on the same page and my kids and I feel connected. It's much more motivating to go do the things that I'm passionate about because I have a purpose, right? It's not just to make money or to, it's not something like external. It's like that deep internal connection that I have with myself and with my family. And it's like us doing the thing, right? Like, I think that really just makes the difference for fathers in general, but probably parents and business owners.
Okay, say if you're a father, you have a full-time business. It takes up your entire day. And you've worked your entire day. Now you get home and you have, X amount of minutes to spend with your kids before they go to bed.
Right?
How for that sort of a schedule, how can a father relate with his family and connect with his family? Like what are some ideas or strategies?
So it's interesting, specifically for dads. Oxytocin is a neurochemical that all of us have, and we call it like the connection chemical. So oxytocin between a mom and a child is released when they're like physically close and emotionally close, right? So when you feel like connected in that way. For fathers, it's when we're playing. So we feel more connection with our children when we're playing. So that doesn't mean that you have to like play all the time, right? There's other research that shows that like 10 minutes of undivided attention builds lasting relationships with children, which is crazy. 10 minutes. Most of us spend hours, but and then we still beat ourselves up, right? But usually what I do, like last night, I run a full-time business and I get home, we usually eat dinner or do something like that. And then like we just play, right? Like have fun. That doesn't mean you play all the time. That doesn't mean you have to do all the things, but show your kids you're 100% there, right? And do what's comfortable to you, given your, emotional and physical stamina at the end of the day. But just show them you're there, right? You can do whatever's comfortable. But um, again, kind of going back to our previous conversation, like, are we 100% at the places we are?
So it's play. It's spending that undivided attention. And play may not mean play catch, right? Go out to the backyard and play catch. It could look like
Yeah.
hanging out with your kid while your kid is putting a puzzle together. I don't know, right? What are some examples of play?
I have some social media content revolving around bedtimes. Like, I think sometimes we're at the end of our rope, but if we just like can get to a place where we can enjoy that experience of bedtime, there's like some of the most rewarding conversations, especially as your kids get older, uh, that I've had with my oldest during that bedtime phrase. Like when we're just sitting on the couch, like we just read a book and he's like, "Hey dad, can I talk to you about whatever?" Like that was something that wouldn't have happened earlier in the day when his siblings and everyone, it was chaotic. But I think connecting with your kid looks a lot of different ways, and social media doesn't help, right? Like there's a lot of expectation, but just being there, right? Like whatever that looks like in your family, just be there, show up.
That is so relieving because you mentioned earlier we spend hours and hours with our kid and we still beat ourselves up. And I definitely experienced that where I have a 5 hour block where I keep the kid alive. Like that's my turn to keep the kid alive.
Yeah.
And a lot of times in that block, there are other things that have to get done. We got to keep the household running. We got to, I don't know, to go shopping for the birthday gift or the whatever. Like life has to keep going too. And so it's keeping the kid alive on top of the things. And I do feel bad sometimes when my kid comes up to me and is like, "Hey, can you play with me? Can we play trains or whatever it is that he wants to do?" And I'm just like, "Not right now. Not right now." And so it's like sometimes I grapple with, okay, should I capitalize on those moments where he wants to play with me and he asks me for play? Or is it okay to say not right now? Like what is the balance there?
So my wife's really good at this. And I do the opposite. Like I ask them if they want me to play with them. And my wife always says like kids need to play with themselves and with other kids as well. So she always suggests like waiting until they come to you. Right? Like let them be themselves. And when they need something, let them come and ask you. Now, if you can't do it in that moment, maybe instead of saying like I can't right now, you might say something like, "Hey, give me 5 minutes." Again, like going back to those thought loops, right? Like let me close up whatever's doing or put a pause to it so I can transition effectively. Because then you become resentful if it's like, "Oh, you're always asking and I'm always in the middle of something." Like let me close it up, right? Let me stop chopping the thing or let me, finish the call I'm on. And then after that, I can again be fully with you, right? And that doesn't mean you're fully with them for 10 hours. Like be with them and then say, "Hey, like I'll play with you for, 10 minutes and then mommy's got to go do something," right?
That's beautiful. Thank you for that guidance on how to rephrase and ultimately zooming out. That is the kindest thing to do, which is being honest with our kid. Hey, I've got to take 5 more minutes to wrap up this thing, close this thought loop. We don't have to say that, but that's what's happening in order to be fully present with you and give you my 100% attention. So I love
100%.
that.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Well, that all said, let's go ahead and dive into a quick lightning round. So, first, what prompted you to start your practice?
So I never wanted to be a therapist. I just had a mentor in my master's program who kind of asked me to sit in on the session, and that really drove the rest of my career. And then as a kid, I grew up in foster care, so stable parents wasn't something I was accustomed to, but I was very passionate about having being the dad that I wanted, right, as a kid, and helping other parents to do the same.
That's beautiful. It's beautiful. What would your advice be to someone who wants to start their own practice?
That's a good question. One, get a mentor, like get someone that can walk you through things. I love doing that for up and coming business owners, practice owners. But I've just kind of learned everything on my own, right? And like ask questions as I could. And it's a lot easier just to have someone there that can help walk you through.
What has been your biggest business win so far?
I would probably say that right now in my career, I'm really satisfied with where we're at. I'm doing a lot more speaking arrangements and things like that. And that's kind of what I'm really passionate about is like spreading my message out, right, to a wider audience. And I'm finally getting there. It took years, right, to get to this point. But it's really cool to be where I'm at.
You did that. You did that.
Yeah, we're here.
What has been your biggest challenge so far?
I would say that the biggest challenge of owning your own business, especially for a sole provider, is that exact thing, right? Like it's all on you. No one's going to save you from it, right? Like you don't you, if you get fired from your company, it's because you didn't do something right. Like it's on you. So I think just like keeping, like you said, keeping your kid alive, keeping the business alive, and keeping it thriving takes a lot of effort, right? And it takes a lot of energy, and that growth period is really difficult, but it's definitely worth it.
How do you think you're able to grow despite the challenge of growth? Like what did you do to grow your business?
I mean, I use this word a lot. I didn't used to like this word, but like it's a hustle, right? Like you got to run, and you just got to tap doors and open opportunities, right? Like I was just talking to someone the other day, like I've cold emailed and called so many people to get opportunities, right? And that's like that creates stuff, right? Like the squeaky wheel gets the grease kind of a thing. Um, yeah, that's not always comfortable for a lot of people to like put yourself out there, right? Social media was not something that I wanted to do. I just started in July, and so, but I should clarify, it was something I wanted to do, but I was felt so uncomfortable with it. But now doing that's like I've had so many opportunities to connect with wonderful people, including you, uh, through social media, right? Like do the thing that is most uncomfortable, and it usually will yield positive results.
Like I'm surprised that I'll say just started your social media endeavors because your social media is it's juicy. You have
Yeah,
a lot of
yeah,
content and a lot of engagement. You're crushing it.
yeah. I'm trying. I mean, not all reels are the same, but we try our best.
Absolutely. And have there been any marketing strategies that you've tried that are just flopping? They didn't work for you and your business.
Um, you know what? I will say that I've been pretty lucky in terms of the therapy, like doing individual and group therapy. That's never really been a struggle to get clients. I would say that now, like kind of getting into like a broader audience, um, it's just hard. Like you have to connect with the right people, right? And not all people are receptive to your message, nor does everyone want to talk to you about what you're doing. Um, but that's just kind of part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, ultimately.
Right.
And what is your dream for your business and for your family?
I think that my dream for my business is to be able to get to a point where I can take my family, because therapy is pretty confidential. But if I was doing more speaking arrangements and had a broader audience, taking my family to those things, I think that would be so fun. I've been in a couple times to conferences I speak at, and it's just I want this to be a family affair for sure.
So cool. Braxton, where can people find you if they have any questions or maybe they're seeking therapy?
Yeah, so on Instagram, I have an Instagram at braxton.storm and or underscore storm, and then Calm the Storm LLC at gmail.com. Happy to consult, or you can reach me there.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today, sharing all of your wisdom. I am feeling inspired as a mom, particularly because now I feel like I have more tools to do this job at least a little bit better, whatever that means.
Thank you for having me on.
Say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Say bye-bye. See you later.
Bye-bye. See you later.
Thank you for joining us on Bringing Up Business. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean the world if you took a quick second to rate our show on Apple or Spotify, or write a comment on YouTube. You can also share this episode with anyone who you think might gain value from this show. You can find us on Instagram at bub.podcast. That's bub.podcast. And finally, if you have a question that you would like us to answer, please let us know at bringingupbusiness.com. We can either answer it on the show or we can respond back to you directly. Also, a quick disclaimer because our legal team asked us to. This recording is for informational purposes only and should not be considered business, financial, or legal advice. Opinions expressed are as of the date of recording and are subject to change. The views and opinions of guests on this program are not necessarily those of Umari Digital. Thank you again for listening.